FM 100.9 WLAF. A little bit different format this hour as we're visiting with David Shepard and Big Josh Etter here. My name is Jim Freeman, and we're talking about the wonderful life and career of Kyla Faye Rowland this morning. And you gentlemen know her quite well. David, obviously you're a family member as well as a co-performer with her.
Many people that in this area that would know her would have known her as Kyla Faye Martin. That was her maiden name. She was a 63 graduate of La Follette High School.
Okay.
And lived in the Valley area. Well, lived in the fairgrounds, and a lot of people don't know what the fairgrounds are anymore.
That's true. We're talking about...
but we're talking about people that would know.
Yes.
The fairgrounds and in the Valley area of La Follette until they moved to Murfreesboro, where Kyle, her dad, his job took him there in the insurance business. So,
well, Big Josh, Kyla Faye Rowland is someone, you play her music, her son Brian's music.
Oh, yeah, well, Barry Roland, and of course, me and Dave were just talking about her brother
Ron.
that she sung with, Ron Martin, for years. And when they were the Rowlands, when I was going to Binghamtown Baptist Church and met those guys. And I'll tell you, they didn't have a lot of groups in Binghamtown, but that was one of William Boyd's favorites right there.
Yeah, they were close friends. And the lady that is now the music director there has sung some with Kyla over the years. And
that lady has, I think she taught music maybe at Bell County, maybe?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about the life of Kyla Faye Rowland, Kyla Faye Martin Rowland.
Right.
She passed away in the wee hours yesterday morning at her home in Morristown, where she has lived for the last several years. But we remember her today and her music. And she was not only a performer, but a songwriter as well, composer.
She was. And she was a speaker. A lot of folks in this area may not... usually her ministry involved a ladies' meeting on a Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon where they were singing on the weekend. Mm-hmm. And she was much the speaker, and her ministry was teaching prayer warriors more than it was the music ministry. Even though she was, like I say, a prolific songwriter, wrote well over 1,000 songs over the years. But Kyla and I grew up together. We were more like sisters. There's Kyla and Ron, and then I have one other first cousin on my mother's side, and that's Byron Goins, which we play ball with.
Yes,
James, and so. But Ron was gone at a young age. And it was me and Kyla, and we spent a lot of time together at the old Cherokee Theater every Saturday. Mm-hmm. We didn't tell a whole lot. Even if it was 100 degrees, we would have a jacket on and get a sack of hot dogs, either from the pool room or the old Hamburger King. And Kyla loved lemons. We get a sack of lemons from the old Woodsons on the viaduct. And
now that's going
to that's going. But we had to go every Saturday because you had to keep up with the cereal. You know, didn't care what the movies were. You had
to keep it going.
Well, these young people won't know what you're talking about now.
That's true.
Yeah, that was the draw.
Well, David, share with us, I guess, the family dynamics of your relationship and kinship with Kyla Faye.
Okay, my grandmother had 3 children, and the youngest was Henry Goins, which was Byron's dad, and then my grandfather owned the old Terminal Barbershop, which a lot of people don't remember, which was across from Bowman's Jewelers. And my mother was the second oldest, and Kyla's mother, Eulalia, which we called Aunt Lay, was the oldest. And so as we grew up as a large family, they all worked. The ladies all worked at the old shirt factory. Mm-hmm. There were 2 shirt factories when we were children. There was one on Tennessee. There was one. The big shirt factory was down below where Pyro's is now,
on First,
and the other one was on Indiana Avenue, and that's where my aunts, and my mother and my grandmother worked. And supper, not dinner, supper was every night at my grandmother's house with the entire family. The ladies would leave work and come and cook for the entire family. And it wasn't just a Christmas get-together. It was a family dinner 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And so that was a heritage that, still kind of brings tears when I think about it,
I just had a phone call from Miss Josie McNeely just a few minutes ago talking about Eulalia,
Yes.
knowing her so well.
Well, Eulalia was quite the character. She was boisterous and funny and loud. My mom was quiet, and they were just the polar opposites. But Kyla's heritage of being a prayer warrior came from our family too. Aunt Lay, you would never leave her that she didn't get on her knees. Well, y'all are getting ready to leave. I said, well, we got to get on our knees and pray. So wherever it was at before she left La Follette, if it was in Morristown, it was on her knees beside her recliner until she could no longer get down. But we always left with prayer. And my mother was a prayer warrior too, but hers was it wasn't vocal or loud. I have memories of getting up of a morning and going to the kitchen door being shut, and I could hear my mother praying. We had a restaurant booth for a table growing up, and there was just enough space between the restaurant booth and the cabinet, and she would be down there praying. I don't know why she would do that. I would hear her, and I'd stand there for a few minutes, and then I'd open the door loudly, and she'd jump up with her apron, wiping her with her flour bowl, like she was down there to get her, like she didn't want anybody to know. But I heard her pray many prayers for me and our family.
Yeah, if I could only hear.
If I could only hear. You know what? As a kid, I used to think, gosh, I don't want to hear that. I love that song now.
Yeah. Well, it's because you'd love to be able to do that. But
well, there's a lot of songs that you may not have liked as a child because you'd never experienced them.
That's right.
But now that you've experienced them, they become more precious to you.
This is WLAF. We're visiting with David Shepard and Big Josh Etter as we are looking back on the life and career of Kyla Faye Martin Rowland, a La Follette native. How much was La Follette in her life after she moved away?
Till she was, I guess, around 19 or 20. In fact, the first song she ever wrote became a #1 song, and she lived in La Follette when she wrote it. And when I mention it, everybody will remember "He'll Row You Over the Tide." And that was the first song she wrote. And she did live here. It was inspired by something a nurse said to her up at La Follette Hospital. When Kyla was a teenager, she was taking beauty school at Knoxville School of Beauty, and she contacted meningitis. Old Doc Davis, who was that's where your dad's dental office was in that building. And Doc Davis just told the family, you need to prepare. She's not going to make it.
Wow.
And Aunt Lay, she prayed and she got an answer, and she didn't worry about it. And it wasn't, I don't know which one, viral or bacterial. Viral is the one that is very you can catch. That's what she had was the worst form, and we were quarantined as a family. And but
was that first song? When was that?
That 18. She was 18 or 19, so it was in the 60s.
64. Yeah.
It was in the 60s. She had just got out of school, so it was the mid.
Well, I can remember as a young man, not really young, but as a young man, I can remember my uncle, Jess Parsley, lived in Portsmouth, Ohio, and he's sung with some pretty well-known singers. And that song, they used to tease him about that. He loved it so much that he'd sing it every Sunday if they would let him at Maybert Road.
Well, I had a unique opportunity. I put Kyla on the phone with this lady, and you'll know her. I was actually at the cemetery making arrangements for John Bond.
Yeah.
And Pat, his wife, was there, and she asked how Kyla was. And I didn't know this, but Pat was Kyla's nurse when she woke up. Pat made the call to her house, and my Uncle Kyle answered, and she told him that Kyla was awake. Doc Davis said she wasn't going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that Kyle just motioned to Lay that she was awake, and she could hear Aunt Lay shouting in the background. And Pat was in the room. It was just a short drive. We lived on Beach Street,
right.
Just a short drive up to the hospital. And Pat said she could hear Aunt Lay when she got out of the car shouting all the way to the door, all the way through the halls, all the way through to the room to see her. And so Pat Bond was with her when she woke up from the coma.
Wow.
And it wasn't an induced coma. It was, I don't even know if they did that
at
that time.
Well, Big Josh, your television show, Southern Style Praise, is one of your connections to Kyla Faye Rowland.
Well, that's when I first met her, was talking to her about doing an interview.
Right.
We weren't talking about singing, but an interview. And that was another thing that was brought up to me this morning that people won't realize that don't know her, was the fact that was her speaking ability, her skills, and teaching, and these prayer ladies conferences, I believe they used to call them.
Yes.
That she was well known for.
Yes.
Of course, we hear these songs done by not just by her, but by Karen Peck and New River, and you can just name them. Everybody has done Kyla Faye
The
Rowland
Perrys
songs.
did a post the other day that from the 90s, from the time they recorded their first songs until their last project, that they had recorded 34 of her songs, the Perrys.
Yeah, but see, that was her style. They done
Right.
her style of music, and they just fit really well. But I tell you what people need to understand. You're talking about your aunt being such a prayer warrior and answer prayers, but we still serve the same God.
That's right.
That they did then, and I think people have a tendency maybe not to have that kind of faith, but it still happens.
We hear a phrase all the time: prayer closet.
Yeah.
I know where the prayer closet is. I've seen they're literally in Aunt Lay's home, and literally in Kyla's home. There was a prayer closet.
We're visiting with David Shepard, Big Josh Etter here on WLAF as we remember the life of Kyla Faye Martin Rowland, who passed away yesterday morning. David, are the arrangements such where you could share that information with folks?
Not yet. All I can tell you is the service will be at Indiana Avenue Saturday.
Okay, and we'll have those details.
And we'll have
probably
that, and then
today.
the interment will be later in the day at Powell Valley.
So anyone who would like to share the respects, of course, we'll have that for you.
You'll have them as soon as I have them.
Okay, fair enough. Big Josh, obviously interviewing Kyla Faye, would you share a thought or two with us about her music from your standpoint? You're a musician, you're a radio announcer. Describe her music, her style.
I think if I could try to describe what I think of Kyla Faye, her music was, her songs was her speaking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, my dad used to always say, son, if you want to learn to do a song and present it to where people can understand it, you need to read that song before you try to sing it. So, you know where to stop, where to go. It does teach you a lot. But that was her song style, I think, David, was, to me, it was just, we talk about the Perrys doing her music and it being their style, but it was just, they were just telling a story.
That's right.
And the Perrys do a good job on her songs, but she did a good job writing them, as evident everybody knows Kyla Faye Rowland. I'd never been to Follett, Tennessee when I first came here to visit. Never knew this place existed, but I knew of Kyla Faye Rowland.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just everywhere.
Well, I had the opportunity, privilege really, of traveling for about 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And I had always worked retail until we started the cemetery. Well, then I had a little more free time, and I told her one day, if you ever need somebody to go and fill in a weekend, because she actually has 2 or 3 ladies around the country that if she was singing in this part of the country that could just come in and do the service with her. And she said, well, let's just go in here. And it turned out not to be a fill-in. It turned out to be 2 or 3 weekends a month. Not every week, but just about 2 or 3 weekends a month. And I continued until the time came where I just could not depend on getting away.
Now that hadn't been that long ago, has it?
It was in 02 when the cemetery started. Yeah. So it was from 03 to about 06 and then periodically along. But, we would always go and do a couple of songs at each of the ladies' meetings. And her husband, Bob, and I used to joke about we had eaten so many chicken croissants that we were just one of the girls now. But,
David Shepherd with us, along with Big Josh. David's referencing the Powell Valley Cemetery. David, Kyla's son, Brian.
Barry.
Right. Okay. Brian Free kept coming up on my radar.
Yeah. Well, Brian's done.
Barry Roland has had quite a career as well.
He has. And one of Kyla's most popular songs, of course, was One Scarred Hand, which was recorded by Gold City. And One Scarred Hand was written, a lot of folks, if you've never heard Barry in concert and heard his testimony, Barry was somewhat of a rebel as a young man. He was one of the best basketball players ever were that he played at Morristown, actually for his uncle Ron.
Well, if your name Barry, you had to be a pretty good ball player.
And Barry could literally pick a quarter off the top of the backboard. That's how high he could jump. And he had several recruiting offers, including Don DeVoe, but he couldn't make the grade. And he'll tell you that. So he played at there in Morristown at the junior college to get his grades, but he became frustrated during one game and just walked off the court. Told Kyla he couldn't take this anymore. He left home, went to Murfreesboro as a young man, and got into some situations he didn't need to be in. And he'll tell you that he was in some sort of state on the couch years after he had been there. And he said, I could see above me and hear things. And he realized that what he was hearing was the prayers of his grandmother. And he got up and he called Kyla and asked if he could come home. She said, of course you can. Said, and I'll have your favorite meal cooked. And a lot of folks have said, well, so that's when you wrote One Scarred Hand. Oh, she said, oh, no, that's not when I wrote One Scarred Hand. I wrote One Scarred Hand the morning after Barry left. I was praying for him. And I saw that scarred hand, and he had Barry in safe in that. He said, I'll bring your son home. And he did. So she didn't write it when he came home.
Oh, my.
She wrote it the day he left. And so I can share, if I can make a little plug, not for me, and I just barely know the man, but if someone wants to hear some of her stories and over the next few weeks, you may know him. Les Butler was a DJ for years, and he worked for, he's a great pianist. He's got a group. He's played for Kyla quite often, but he has a new project, and I can't tell you what it is, but if you go to Facebook and look up Les Butler Live. Les and Kyla were very close. He did a 3-hour. He did a 3-hour program before the night she passed, well, the morning before, and we all listened to it. Had it in Kyla's ear. Don't know if they said she could hear it, though she was non-responsive. Mm-hmm. The day before she passed away at 2:40 in the morning, me and my wife and many others that had sung with her and been with her over the years, we were there all day long. A lot of good pianists there, and we would sing her songs, and
wow.
Some of the most beautiful harmony. We've got some videos of that, but those are more family things, But Les, you can still hear that, and there's many of Kyla's stories, and Les is going to be doing more of those over the next few days.
Yeah, we get to talk to Les quite often, and he's quite he's the man of music. He's still got that old time preachers quartet going.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of stuff like the album you're talking about, right. Les Butler Live.
He's a very spiritual man. He's a good
Well,
man.
he had a big struggle with this COVID,
He did.
last year, and didn't think he was going to make it. You and I had talked about that.
We had.
But he's a believer.
Yes.
And I enjoy that. And that's a real tribute for somebody to take the time out and do what he done. Mm-hmm. I know he must be a busy guy.
Yeah.
But Kyla Faye's got a great story, and she's still got a lot of family here in Campbell County, doesn't she?
Not a lot in Campbell County. The Martins were mostly Anderson County.
Okay.
What's left of us are me and Byron, and then of course we're kin to the Ivies, and the Ivies are like the sands of the sea, so there are many. So our grandmother was an Ivy, so I don't tell a whole lot of people that Shelley was my great uncle, but he was.
Okay. David Shepherd is here with us today, along with Big Josh Etter. We're remembering the life of Kyla Faye Martin Rowland, passing away yesterday morning. David, you mentioned that obviously a very dynamic personality, a performer, but kind of a quiet person, I guess.
She
off
was.
The stage.
She was, and she prayed for more people. She got many requests every day, by text, by phone, and her life was more, and I can say this, she was more focused on her prayer ministry than she was convincing or helping women to realize through her meetings what a power they had in prayer. And some of her songs reflect that. Of course, many of her songs relate to prayer. One of the Perry's most popular songs was Prior, and I don't know how they ever got that prior to a prayer.
Oh, that's a tongue twister.
You can find that on one of the Perry's. I don't know which one, but it's on one of their CDs.
Gosh, I can remember as a fairly young guy going to Breaks of the Mountain in Kentucky, I believe, isn't it?
Kentucky, Virginia.
Virginia, yeah.
Right there on the border. Uh-huh.
And I listened to the Perrys for the first time there.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, and we have to get up after this.
Right.
But all you can be is yourself, good or bad. But they done some powerful stuff.
We were listening to Les coming home the other night, and they had the story. Kyla told the story of how she wrote Royal Descendant, and they played the Perrys singing Royal Descendant.
Yeah.
Tammy said, "That's not the Perrys, is it?" I said, "That's the original Perrys. That's when there were two ladies."
Yeah,
and
Little
Randy.
Women.
Yeah, and I believe it was Randy.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? And of course Tracy was singing the bass back then. Of course, still.
Yeah, we still got an old. Don Burns used to love to do one of his songs, Randy Perry's songs. But a lot of old stuff in this computer that I can never get to. If you sit here and played 24 hours a day, we couldn't begin to cover what we got in there. But it's been a treat. God's been good to me, and David, I'm sure He has you. You get to meet some of these folks, and some of them are really real.
That's right.
And that's why God uses them like He does. And
well, that was one reason Kyla always told me, said she liked for me to go with her. And you know as well as I do, we can get together and we can talk and talk and talk. And she always told me I had the gift of gab, so she wanted me to be at the product table. Said because I just can't. Said you can go back there and you can just talk and talk. I said, well, what makes you? But that was true. Of course, she would always stay, at the front and be talking with people. But it was a wonderful time. And I was never that fond of the traveling. I kind of dreaded the week before I knew I had to leave on a Friday, and then it was just wonderful the whole time I was there. And we'd get home many times late Sunday morning or early Monday morning, usually. Yeah. And sometimes we're doing Sunday evening services, so we wouldn't come back till the next day. But then on Thursday or Friday of the next week, we were on the road again, So it's a life that requires an unbelievable calling, first of all.
And commitment. Yeah.
And commitment.
Yeah.
And that was her ministry, and I was happy to be a part of it. But, she had plenty of people around her who were available to help too, and I was just happy to be one of them.
Kyla Faye Martin Rowland passed away yesterday. She was a La Follette native. David Shepherd is with us today. David, thank you for taking time. Big Josh.
Thank you.
What else would you like to share with us about Kyla Faye?
She was, a lot of folks, I believe, like to say I knew this person who's well known or famous. I don't want to. I was just privileged that she was my family. I didn't know her as this above special person that you put on a pedestal. Because we knew each other's faults and flaws. She used to laugh about being. I heard her tell some. Well, this was on one of the stories. Les was. She was talking about a song, and maybe it was actually her and Libby talking. Libby Stuffle, and Kyla was. She said, "Well, I'm not always in the spirit." I said, "I get the flesh every now and then," but that's what made her real to me. We were family, so. It's she had a calling on her, and she was true to the call
till the end.
Yep. And David, it's been a treat sitting here listening to you tell some of these stories.
I've enjoyed it so much.
Well, Big Josh, thank you for taking time, letting me share the chair here. David, a pleasure as always. Thank you so much, David.
We've known
Shepherd.
each other a long time, too.
It's been a few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. As we've been talking and honoring and remembering Kyla Faye Martin Rowland, La Follette native who passed away yesterday, a giant in the music industry, and we'll be playing some of her songs this morning before we move on to some other events. Gentlemen, thanks.
Thank you.
This is WLAF, and we're glad you're along today.